Hey Giants fans, welcome back to Giants Latest. The Giants beat the Jets on Saturday for their second preseason game. And today we are going to focus on talking about the defense, some highlights, and some concerns. So let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to talk about players as a whole that stood out, but something else that I think should be discussed is the fact that, last week this defense gave up 25 points to a Bills team. And there were so many concerns from fans that were saying things like, I live streamed both games. So a lot of the comments that I saw were, we're giving up these huge chunk plays and we can't cover anyone over the middle. That was a lot of the concern last week. This week, that was much better. And they only gave up 12 points to the Jets. So I think something we're going to talk about too is that it feels like maybe we're getting some better depth on the defense as a whole, especially in the secondary. So let's go ahead and talk through it. So Kayvon Thibodeau. A lot of us have talked about him over the last couple of years and feeling that he's just he's not been what we thought or hoped he was going to be. And, he took up wrestling this offseason and said that he had 5 half sacks last year. And what he really wanted to do was focus on closing and that those half sacks should be full sacks. So, I think it's important that he's able to do that. And I think we're starting to see it already. So I want to talk through his stats because I feel like he's had a really nice camp, and as the preseason has gone on, he is someone who has improved as well. So throughout this game, he had 3 tackles, 2 solo, and 1 quarterback hits. But I felt like watching Kayvon, it was a little reminiscent of watching Brian Burns, where I just felt like he was a bit more all over the field than what we've seen from Kayvon. His tackling skills, they seem like they have improved a little bit. I saw him make some really nice tackles. And, he seemed to do a really good job of putting pressure on the quarterback. And this is what we want from Kayvon, right? I think that having Abdul Carter in the building lit a little fire under his ass. I really think that. And we will see. He'll never admit whether or not that's the truth. But, he's always done podcasts and is into fashion and all that kind of thing. And I think we just never got that vibe that he was obsessed with football. We hear Abdul Carter is all football all the time. That's all he wants to talk about. He doesn't care about literally anything else. And I love that. I love it. And we've seen that the players that the Giants have brought in the last couple of years, that's something that they've really focused on. So I think Kayvon has a new little turn of events this year. Maybe it has to do with Abdul Carter. Maybe it has to do with the fact that he's only got 1 more year to prove that he deserves to get paid a crap load of money in this league. But I think it's going to work to the Giants' benefit that we're going to see a much better Kayvon. And I think we've already started to see that. So I'm excited and I'm optimistic about a big season from Kayvon. We got to talk about my boy Nick Jones, okay? Who also had a quarterback hit and was another guy that just seemed to be all over the field making plays. He did a really nice job this game. He was someone that started out strong in training camp, fell off a little bit, kind of hit or miss. Last week didn't look so great. This week looks significantly better. I don't know, maybe the Jets as a whole are a significantly worse team than the Bills, but I just feel like we saw a much better Nick Jones, and I think a lot of that just comes with improving week after week and getting better. So I really like Nick Jones. One thing that I wanted to point out too is that he got most of the snaps with the second team defense. He did get a few with the third team as well. He didn't get any with the first team, I don't think, because Drew Phillips got all of those. But he's working his way through the different levels of the team, and I think he did a really nice job this week. We need to talk about Cordell Flott, because I know all of us worried, no Tay Banks, how is Cordell Flott going to be? Now, one thing I want to say is that his reps were limited because he's coming back from an injury, because I was all day, why are we not seeing more Cordell Flott? He needs more reps. He needs more reps. And I actually talked to Dan Duggan about this because he had posted something about it. And I was like, was it really injury or what? Because the thing is, he wasn't out for weeks at a time, right? He only missed a couple days of practice. So I always got the feeling that it was just something small, but I don't know. Maybe they're just overly cautious with this. But in regards to this, Dable was asked about snap counts with some of the players. Bobby O was the specific reference because he was out there with the starters, and then they put with Micah McFadden, then they put Darius Muasau in, and I think they took Bobby out, but then when they put some of the second stringers in, like Darius Muasau, they left McFadden on the sideline, but they brought Bobby O back in with the second string. So that was a little interesting. This is what Dable had to say. He said they're focused on certain amount of reps for guys, and that's why Bobby O went back out. He said that he is on the headset throughout the game talking to the position coaches and the coordinator, saying, how are we doing on snap counts? Does anyone need more? Are we on time? Like, where should we be bringing guys in and out? Which I thought was really interesting. Just something that we don't really hear from Dable is like more details and stuff like that. So he said Flott was a perfect example that they wanted to give him 10 to 12 reps. Again, specific snap count for guys coming back from injury. They're limiting them, etc. But he ended up playing 18, even though they had only planned on 10 to 12. I guess they just felt like, and he said that he was feeling good enough that he was able to play more. But Cordell Flott looked really good to me. And, you know, sometimes coming off an injury, my expectations are a little low for honestly a lot of Giants players at this point. Like, I don't need you to be an all-pro. I just need you to not be a bum at this point, right? Like, just be good enough so we don't look like an embarrassing football team week in and week out. And I know we should have higher expectations for this team, but I'm just like, until I actually see it, I don't believe that they're going to be a good football team. So Cordell Flott did a really nice job. His biggest play of the game came on a 3rd and 2. Really, really good coverage, I think, on Garrett Wilson. Beautiful pass deflection, no DPI, nothing, a clean PBU. Just exactly what you want from your corner, right? In high leverage situations, can you make those plays? And it's something that we haven't always seen from Tay Banks. And to see it in this scenario with Cordell Flott, I think was fantastic. I think that was the last actual snap that he played, but ended on a high note, did a really great job. I'm excited to see more of him. I think we probably will see him on Thursday against the Pats. I'll talk about this on players to watch, but I don't know about Banks. It's a short week, so we might not see him. But I think we'll see more Cordell Flott, maybe more than 18 snaps. And if he can follow it up with a good performance against the Pats like he did with the Jets, he should be in business. So a couple other players that I wanted to talk about on defense that I think had some nice plays or did good things. So there were 7 pass breakups. We had TJ Moore having one of them. Raheem Lane had another. Makari Page is a guy that we're going to talk about who stood out. He had a pass breakup. Adebo had a nice one. Trace Ford had one as well. Cordell Flott, of course, and then D. Williams. So 7 pass breakups. I think the secondary is coming along. I think it's getting there nicely. Let's go ahead and talk about Makari Page. Makari Page is an undrafted free agent coming out of Michigan who I've talked about before on here. I really was hoping was going to make the 53. And I just felt like he didn't do anything to stand out during preseason or training camp, excuse me. He was always with the 4s. He was rarely ever getting reps with the 3s, not even close to getting them with the 2s. And it just felt like he wasn't doing enough to stand out at all amongst the safeties when we're talking about a guy like Raheem Lane, who seems to make a lot of plays. So, you know, he was just not even coming close to that. He did 2 really good things on Saturday. One of them being an interception, which was a really beautiful catch. And then the second one was the pass breakup. So, you know, these are the things that obviously you have to be consistent about. But spoiler alert, he's probably going to be in my players to watch against the Pats because, again, consistency is the most important thing, right? You didn't do much in the first preseason game against the Bills. You have a nice game against the Jets. Can you do it again against the Patriots on Thursday? So another guy to watch. From the defensive line, we're going to get into the run defense in a second, but you know, Brian Burns did a nice job out there. Abdul Carter had his welcome to the NFL moment where he just got pushed on down to the ground by, I think, the tight end, a side chip, which Abdul Carter was talking shit about it on Twitter, which honestly, I love it. I love it. He said that, you know, it's probably the last time that anyone in the NFL is ever going to see that from him. And we still got the win, so he doesn't care. Love it. Love the savagery. Keep it up, Abdul. So Paulson Adebo, I thought had a relatively nice game as well. Didn't play a ton of snaps with that starting defense. Javon Holland had a tackle, not a lot out of him. We didn't see Nubin. So I don't, again, with this short week, I really don't know how many starters we're going to see, but I felt like, Art Green is another guy that had a pretty good game with 3 tackles, 2 solo, but I just felt like he was one of those guys that was all over the field making plays. And he's been a guy too who did really well during training camp. And again, if you can do it in games, that's when it matters most. Last guy was KJ Cloyd, who had a really nice tackle for loss, beautiful play. A guy that was on the Giants about a year or so ago and then came in back this year and has played okay. All right, I know we're all still worried about the run defense. Dexter Lawrence was not on the field, which obviously Dexter on the field makes a big difference with the run defense. And I know that we're all concerned about it. I think the Giants are going to bring in another interior defensive lineman off of waivers. You never know, but I'm kind of just expecting that that could be an option for them. But the other thing I want to say with this defense is that this week they gave up 141 yards on the ground, and last week they gave up 58 rushing yards, which is a lot less than I remembered, but they gave up 341 through the air, where this week they gave up 192 through the air. So again, is Buffalo's team as a whole significantly that much better than the Jets? Is it possible? Is it also possible that maybe our defense just played better this week? Also a possibility. Here's what I want to say about the run defense is ultimately they have to do two things. Number one is bend, don't break. They're never, with the talent that they have right now, they're not going to be a team that gives up less than 100 yards rushing during a regular season game, I don't think. But so they can bend, they can give up some rushing yards, but they can't break. So what they can't do is do what they did last year when on a 3rd and 17, they allow someone like Joe Burrow to scramble and run for 17 plus yards and get the first down. And then I think he also got a touchdown. So they have to not be able to do that, right? And that's the second thing, is that if they're going to give up run yards, they can't do it on long situations like that, because that's how things get out of hand quickly. And when, you're going to go against good running backs like Saquon Barkley and, whoever else we're going to play this year from a running back standpoint, they have to be able to just slow it down, right? They don't have to stop the run completely. They're probably not going to with this team that we're looking at right now, but they have to slow it down. And I think it's going to be a possibility. Again, this week they gave up 141, right? And Braylon Allen had 34 yards, who's the Jets starter, and Breece Hall, who's the other starter, had 26. Justin Fields only had 5 rushing yards, where my biggest concern was going to be someone like Justin Fields, because when you're going against a mobile quarterback, this is something we're going to have to worry about with Jaden Daniels. Are they going to be able to slow him down, right? So still some concerns there. I will say that, I did see some good things out of guys like Roy Robertson Harris. Chauncey Golston was in there quite a bit. Ledbetter was okay. Who else on the defensive line? Like Chris Board has been okay as a linebacker too. I still obviously think that Bobby O and McFadden are going to be the most important linebackers here. But, Darius Alexander, okay. Didn't get to watch him super up close a lot, but I feel like he was okay for the most part. But again, they have to bend, not break. And that's something that, I think we'll see against the Patriots this week if they play Trayvon Henderson, who's supposedly been having a really great offseason so far. Let's see if the Giants can stop him. But obviously, it's an area of concern, but Dexter Lawrence wasn't on the field. So let's see. Also, Newbin wasn't on the field. And, I think Newbin is also a good run defender. And last year, Drew Phillips was good against the run, but he was injured and he missed quite a few games and was a rookie. So I think in year 2, I expect guys like Newbin and Drew Phillips to also help make a difference in the run game. I expect Bobby O, being in the second year of the system and being healthy, to make a difference on the run game. And I expect Micah McFadden to do that as well, going into his last year of his contract, but also someone who has steadily improved on his tackling skills. He's unfortunately still one of those guys that misses a tackle that you're just like, oh my God, like it feels game ruining. But he needs to improve upon that too during this season. But also Abdul Carter is going to be used against the run. So, we're not seeing any exciting or crazy looks because there's no game plans and things like that. But I do still think from the defense as a whole, that's probably the most concerning piece. But what I will say is I feel like the depth at the secondary is definitely improving, and I think it's better than what we expected it to be. So if our rotation is between Banks and Flott, and then of course we have Adebo and we have Drew Phillips as our starter. You've got Nick Jones, who's kind of been up and down, but overall a decent slot corner who, if God forbid, had to fill in for Drew Phillips, hopefully wouldn't be the worst out there and has had some good practices. If Tay Banks ends up being the starting CB2, if God forbid Adebo goes down, you've got Flott on the other side. I don't really want to see the two of them. Obviously, I want to see a Debo, but at the very least, you've got some options there. You've got a guy like TJ Moore and Art Green, who both have done decent jobs during preseason, who've been on this team before last year, so not their first year in the system. So, I think that as a whole, the secondary and the depth that we have is better now than it has been in the past. And we've talked about this before in different instances, but I think to actually see these guys go out on the field and make some plays, yes, it's against the second and third stringers, but again, that all builds confidence, and it'll give the players the confidence to say that, if I'm Trey Hawkins and I have to get thrown in there with the ones because Banks and Flott, or God forbid, injured or something like that, he has the confidence to say, well, I made some plays in camp and I know what I'm capable of. I have good coaching, whatever. I can go out there and make plays. So Trey Hawkins actually didn't play because he was injured, but one of the first guys that came to mind of someone who's played actually and had to be a starter for this Giants team and, did some good things, did some bad things. So we will see as time goes on. But for the rest of this week, we're going to talk about players to watch on offense and defense before the Giants take on the Pats for their third and final preseason game on Thursday night. So follow along.